Hi, friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Mental Fitness Unscripted podcast, where our conversation will encourage your healthy living journey. Inspired by our Team Quadzilla coaching motto, healthy living starts between your ears, we talk about mental fitness in ways that challenge us to think about our thinking regarding topics like habits, leadership, exercise, values, marriage, parenting, and faith. Our hope with this podcast is to sharpen you as we sharpen ourselves to be all we were made to be. So let's dive right into the conversation on this episode of Mental Fitness Unscripted.
Well, good morning, Chad.
Hello.
We were just comparing weather. I mean, it was freezing there, which is unusual, and it's really hot here. Well, I shouldn't say hot. It's quite temperate here, which is unusual. So, yeah, usually this time of year it's still freezing. We have a local. You'll find this funny. We have a local nursery, and I know the owner pretty well. But he has a sign up, and it says, "Please remember that it's not unusual for frost to appear until May 15th." And he has a sign up there. I'm sure that he's had people go out and plant stuff and then come back and say, "Hey,
everything's dead.
Everything's dead. I need a new one."
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. You didn't tell me this. Anyway. Well, we came here without any plans.
Yes. True to our identity for our podcast is we make it up as we go.
And I don't know that it's made up. I think it's just we discover as we go. What do you think?
There you go. That's a better word. Yeah.
I think we discover as we go. At least I'm trying to.
Yeah. Well, I have an idea today, if you don't, but I'll defer to you because I usually hijack the thing and come up with something, but
I've got tons to talk about, but go ahead. Let's talk about what you...
Are you sure?
Absolutely. Let's talk about what concerns you.
Well, so I'll share what I hope is a very brief story. Yesterday I was pedaling in a garage. I set my bicycle up on a little trainer and I put my phone up on the windowsill and run a video that has a trainer on there that yells at me to pedal faster and all of that for the workout.
You do this on purpose? And you have somebody yell at you?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I need to, because if I go out there without anything and just pedal, it becomes pretty mundane and not focused and not as effective, certainly. So anyway, it's super helpful. But the point is that during this suffering period here, he was sharing a story about the idea of impostor syndrome and doing hard things. Now, we've talked about doing hard things often in here, but I liked how he related that to impostor syndrome, which basically says, we get this maybe a fear or an anxiety about ourselves that keeps us from trying something or doing something hard or doing something new because we don't feel like we're ready, or we're not good enough to do it, or I'm not expert, so who's going to listen to me, or that kind of idea, right? And what he was saying is, in his story, was that he was preparing for a half Ironman triathlon, which is several hours kind of a race, and it's pretty intense. And he got injured a couple months before the event and couldn't train. And so he had to make a decision whether or not he was going to do the race, even though he wasn't ready. And take a chance just and see what would happen. And given his lack of preparation or readiness, he went into the thing, and long story short, it ended up working out, and he finished and felt good and all of that. But the mental reinforcement that it was for him is that, hey, listen, I took a big chance here. I'm not ready at all to do this really hard thing. And I went and did it anyway. And it all worked out. And so he said, relating that to this idea of imposter syndrome, where let's get out of our heads here and recognize that probably for most things, we could argue that we're not ready. I mean, what is ready for, I mean, when you think about people who say that they're not ready to be married or they're not ready to have kids, well, how will you be ready? There's really no such thing. Even if you think you're ready, you're actually not even close to being ready to be married or to have kids, right? Or for anything else. So to me, this idea was just kind of interesting to think about, where I would perhaps be afraid or limit myself in trying something new or doing the hard thing because my rationale is that I'm an imposter, I'm a hypocrite, I'm just not ready, and I'm not expert, and that's all just baloney. So anyway, what do you think about that?
Don't you, I'm going to ask you a question, and then I want to go back to your coach that's yelling at you, but don't you find that the imposter syndrome shows up in something that you have to act like an expert in, that you're teaching someone else, or in that mode of being in a leadership role and you have to lead out, whether it's in a teaching or a leadership role, somewhere where you're kind of putting yourself out in the spotlight saying, okay, follow me.
Absolutely. I mean,
isn't that where it mostly shows up?
Yeah, for sure. And I relate to that very much, because even like what we're doing here, it's easy for me to say things that sound like, I have it together or that this is the way, but I'm convicting myself every time, because I don't have it together, but I'm still sharing these things that might be, right or true, and I am not there, and nor am I ready. And so in a sense, I'm often wondering to myself, who's even going to listen to me? Who am I to say any of this stuff? But yeah, that's definitely where it shows up.
Well, and to your point, I feel that way too. It's like, who am I? I'm dealing with this stuff, and
Yeah,
so, if nothing else, this is a really good talk through for me to do better on things that I'm trying. So anyway, let's go back to your coach that's yelling at you. So what did he determine as far as, how do you handle the imposter syndrome there? Did he give you some
well,
tips, or?
I mean, it's in between really heavy breathing while we're racing on our bike, so it wasn't like a full blown instruction. But his point was just try it, just do it, despite the fear or the anxiety you have about being imposter or hypocrite or not ready or whatever. Life is short, and you're going to learn from the experience. But if you just continue to sit on the sidelines waiting to be ready, life's going to pass you by. And I just thought, man, it's so true and quite profound for a guy yelling at me while we're huffing and puffing on the bicycle. So anyway, it was really just kind of a go for it or try anyway type of lesson.
So I'm going to ask you another set of questions here. Where do I want to start here? what's the difference between caution and procrastination?
Man. Yeah, we've talked about procrastination before,
We
and
have,
that was pretty heavy.
okay?
Yeah.
But you go into situations and you need. Yesterday, my dad wanted me to go look on top of his roof. He was having some problems with some stuff on his roof. And as I stepped on the roof from the ladder, well, even when I started up the ladder, guess what was going on in my mind? I've got to be
Oh,
cautious. I've
sure.
got,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a different
Every
round,
step.
right?
Hmm.
I've got to concentrate here. And on top of this, my 80-plus-year-old father is climbing the ladder in front of me, and so I'm being cautious not only for me but for him. And just a little
Yeah.
backstory: my grandfather, his father, was working on a roof and fell off, and that's how he died. So anyway,
Oh,
this is all going through my mind. So I go into caution mode, but not only for me, but for my father. But where does caution and procrastination come? Okay, it's okay to be cautious,
yeah.
and we
Right.
should be, right?
Yep.
But when do we lean on that and go, I don't know, maybe this isn't the
Yeah.
thing I should. Where does caution end and procrastination start? And we
Ooh,
use it as a crutch to say, yeah, I'm not going to do that
yeah.
because it's hard, or
Yep.
and we call it dangerous. Is it hard to climb a ladder and get up on a roof? And yeah, that's different. That's
Yeah. No, I think there's great. This is another area where there's just great tension, and why, another of the long list of things how we could say that life is hard, because you're always having to calculate that in your mind, right? Of where is that line, and every situation is different. But I think for me, hearing you ask that question and just trying to process, it's really a matter of being aware that this tension exists, and then using your experiences and things like this to help, or maybe your priorities or your values too, to drive, you know, what is enough caution versus, okay, it's time to take action here. I can't just sit around anymore.
yep.
This has to get done or whatever. But I don't know if you've got like a secret formula for that. I'm happy to hear it. But to me, it just feels like a tension we've got to sort out every time.
Well, and go back to your story of the guy that, hey, he was hurt, he was injured, he wasn't ready, but what did he do?
Yeah, yeah,
He had every excuse to use caution to
right.
procrastinate going and doing the event. And I'm not saying that even though you're hurt, you just go do everything. I'm not saying that. But what
Right.
he did was is he internalized it and he said, okay, where am I truly at? So here's my next question.
Mm.
Can you have caution and have faith and move forward?
Yes, I think you
I
you
think you
need
can.
to.
And
Yeah,
yeah, no, and I think we need to. But procrastination usually comes from a fear.
right.
We don't want to look stupid, or we don't want to, whatever fear that is. For me, it was my father falling off of a roof, and we have the second generation die of falling off of a roof. I just have these images
Yeah,
in my mind of,
sure.
and then I'm trying to help him, and it takes all three of us out. But so that was going on in my mind. But you know what? We proceeded. I've been on a roof before. I know my father's been on a roof before. We've been cautious, and we continued on. We knew that we had to get that piece fixed. Now, I really didn't need my dad to be there, but of course he wanted to be there and show me exactly what it was, but and that's all good and well. But I think sometimes we need to have faith, and it's not to just leap into things, it's to have some caution. And so I want to bring this back to the imposter syndrome. Do we rely on that to procrastinate?
For sure. For sure.
Okay.
I mean, for me, that's a root of my greatest fears. It's
Looking down.
the fear of failure or the fear of rejection.
Yeah, looking.
Yeah, and both of those have, trace it back, and it's because I don't feel like I'm enough or I'm ready or whatever. And so, absolutely.
I wish I could remember where I heard this. I think it was Jordan Peterson, so I'm going to attribute it to him. If I'm wrong, put it in the comments or, email me, whatever. But he said, if you feel like you are having imposter syndrome, you're not an imposter. Because someone that doesn't have imposter syndrome is a narcissist, and they're going to go full bore. They're going to go full bore into whatever they go into, thinking that they're, everything. Okay. And he said, stop restricting yourself by feeling the imposter syndrome. It's okay. It's normal. Okay. It's normal because we're growing. We're going into something that we haven't, or we haven't felt comfortable with, or we haven't, someplace we haven't been before. But a total narcissist will wade in there and know that they're everything. They will never feel, and the true imposter will never feel that they're the imposter.
Ooh, that's a great perspective, because to me, the first thing I thought of as you're saying that is the element of humility. And that, if we're experiencing this tension, there's probably some element of humility in there that is healthy.
It's healthy.
And recognizing that, we're human and this is normal and it's okay. But that shouldn't stop us. That's the procrastination line, is we can't let that stop us. And so that's the preaching to myself is, I've got to do it anyway. Sometimes, not necessarily every time. There's things where you get cautioned and it's like, okay, this is not a good idea. You have to exercise wisdom in those cases. But I think for a lot of times, if it's heavy on your heart, and your heart is postured to want to do the right thing, but it's scary, probably should not procrastinate in those instances. All right, I'm just preaching to myself here.
Yeah, well, I think we have to take ourselves up short and become conscious of what's going on, and say, okay, how am I feeling here? Am I using this imposter syndrome feeling that I'm feeling, this inadequacy that I'm feeling, to procrastinate doing what I should or what I want to do? Okay.
Right.
Now, there's nothing wrong with caution, but I'll go back to my question. Where does caution end and where does procrastination start? And I'm gonna say that procrastination starts where we allow the fear to make the decision for us.
Yeah.
I'm going out on a limb there.
Right. Yeah. It's just this is one of the things that awareness is the key for me to be able to take that moment and process this idea and see where we fit on that spectrum.
Yep.
Because every situation is going to be different. Sometimes the caution is going to say, yeah, this is a really bad idea. You need to not proceed here.
Yeah.
And other times it's going to be, okay, this is still a risky thing, but you need to do this. Yeah.
It's kind of like my roof thing yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I could have totally let that get in the way. So,
Yeah.
um, I love your question. So, I think sometimes this is why we need a coach, whether it's self-inflicted
Right.
coaching or an external. So you've got that guy on your
Mm.
bicycle that yells at you. What's funny is that
Yeah.
he's on a record. You can totally
Yeah.
block him. You
Sure. Yeah.
totally
I don't
ignore
have to
it.
listen to you. You don't know me.
But see, you've placed yourself, and I took this from a movie poster. We have to place ourselves in extraordinary situations to show our extraordinary character.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I think we wait to have the extraordinary character first, which will never happen, before we go into those extraordinary situations. Um,
Boy, I really like that, Todd. You're exactly right because you have to do the thing first.
you,
The character in that instance comes after taking the action and stretching yourself.
the test
Yeah,
comes
that's
first.
very true.
The test
Yeah.
comes first. And see, that's not how we're programmed through school and other things.
Yeah.
But you think of your work. How many times have you had 100% information on the thing that you need to make a decision for in your work? When's the last time you
Yeah.
had 100%
That
information?
never that doesn't happen ever. At some point you're having to decide based upon what you know in the moment.
And see, that's where the caution comes in.
Hmm.
You try and be cautious, and you try and negate and manage the risk as you move forward. But have you had something that you decided that didn't work and you had to do it over?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And and
Yeah.
and and we call that a mistake. So you think in
Mm.
terms of a production of a movie, take one, they do the clapper,
Yeah.
boom, take one. Well, that was a mistake, so let's do it again. Clap,
Mm.
take two. And so mistakes are just that. They're just mistakes, and we learn how it doesn't work. So we don't go there again, okay? And
Right.
my problem is I keep going to mistake one and
Mm.
do it over again. So, and no,
Yeah.
I mean, we all deal with that. It's so anyway, the imposter syndrome. I love this subject because we are not the imposter because we're trying to put ourselves in extraordinary circumstances so that we can become extraordinary. And that requires doing hard things. That requires taking a leap of faith. I call it a
Yes.
leap, but it's probably more of a baby step of faith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is sometimes it's just one foot in front of the next, and
Right.
then that's
Okay.
it.
And that step can feel huge sometimes, but I go back to it's just making a decision,
Mm. Yeah.
and it's usually tied to our identity. I'm a problem
Hmm.
solver. I'm so
Yes.
step into here we go all the way back
Yep.
again. So it really is
Yeah.
it really is how you see yourself.
Boy, that's so true. I was writing about that this morning in that, you know, at some point you're having to draw upon confidence and taking a step, even a baby step of faith, because you don't know what's going to happen next. And you might fail, you might succeed. We don't know, but that's what life is. And if we wait around assuming that we're not good enough or we're some kind of imposter and it keeps us from doing anything, then we live a pretty empty life. And so the reality is we're doing this every day anyway. I think the challenge for me is just to stretch that a little bit, be a little bit more uncomfortable, try some different things or whatever. But where does my confidence come from? that can compel me to take that step. And I think it has very much to do with our identity. It's about how we see ourselves and in the world around us. And, if that's not healthy, then I think it's especially difficult to step into something unknown or to try something. That those fears are going to be much greater if we don't have a true sense of who we really are, and drawing our confidence from that.
Yeah. So if I offered you $1 million to walk across a rope that was 100 feet in span,
Yeah.
and it was 3 or 4 stories high, if I offered you $1 million, would you do it?
No.
Okay, but if the building was on fire over on the other side, and Brandon was standing on the roof saying, "Dad, I need help," would you walk that rope?
Yeah. I mean, it's totally different.
Yeah.
If walking the rope meant that he was going to be safe, then I would definitely.
Yeah, you'd try everything that you could. Okay.
Yep.
And that's what I'm talking. I'm not saying that we have to be that extraordinary in our circumstances. We don't have to force ourselves into a burning building necessarily. But sometimes it might feel like that.
Mm.
It may not be that big, but sometimes it may feel like that. I need to make that phone call to this prospective person to make a sale.
Mm.
Or I may need to have this difficult conversation with this person to settle this issue. It may just feel like a burning building.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Okay. But you've got to just reflect on yourself and say, okay, I'm the leader.
Mm.
I don't feel like a leader right now. I don't feel like I can handle this. But what's funny is most times when you finally make the phone call and they say hello, or you just take that step. What's funny is you almost know the next step to take just by initiating the start.
Mm. Yeah.
You think
I love that.
You think about a difficult phone call or whatever. We put it off. We put it off. We put it off. I don't have enough information. I don't have, and see, it goes back to that imposter syndrome thing that you're talking about. But what's funny is they answer the phone. What are you going to say? Hi.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you know what to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it so true that with so many things, that the very hardest part is the first step? To your point, is if we would just do the first thing, what comes after that is usually much easier and more natural. And what I was thinking is draw upon past experience, where how many times can I recall girding up that courage to take the first step, and then what happened after that? Gosh, for the most part, at the very least, it was way easier than I had built it up to be, right?
It's usually a paper tiger. It looks scary, but when you finally take that step, it just disappears. Yeah. It's a paper tiger.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
I don't know. Did we cover what you wanted to cover?
Yep. We nailed it. Nice. That was good.
Nice.
This one's going viral.
Oh. Well, I got to do some TikTok dance or something.
Yeah, right.
That would
fantastic.
go viral. That would go viral if I did a TikTok. Yeah. I'm feeling my imposter syndrome because I am not a dancer.
Right. Yeah. Not gonna happen. I've evaluated the caution, and it's a no-go.
No-go. I think more than anything, I don't want to look silly. So, all right. Well, anything else?
No, that was fantastic. I'm just encouraged to have this conversation. So thanks for helping me through it.
Well, thank you for reminding me. That quote by, I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Jordan Peterson. You know,
Yeah, that makes sense.
that just opened it up for me. It was like, man, if I'm feeling the imposter syndrome, I'm not the imposter.
Right. Fantastic.
So it helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I'm still scared to take the step. I still feel it, but at least I can be conscious of it and just say, you know what, we're gonna do it. Okay, well,
That's great.
have a super week.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much. Good stuff.
Yeah.